them everything! Stay!
Have you ever wondered what kind of warriors once laid the foundation for legendary military tactics like the Macedonian Phalanx or the Roman testudo? Well, let me introduce you to one of the most iconic armies in ancient history, the Greek Hoplites. They weren't just soldiers, they were a symbol of power, discipline, and strategy. With their famous phalanx formation, razor-sharp spears, and unshakable shields, these warriors crushed enemies that outnumbered them 10-1, including the mighty Persian Empire. So, in this video, let's dive into the world of the Hoplites, a name that still echoes through the halls of history.
Persians! Come and get them!
Imagine this. You're standing in a narrow mountain pass. The air is thick with tension. In front of you, 300 Spartan warriors lock their massive round shields together and brace for the charge of tens of thousands of Persian soldiers. Behind those shields are the legendary Hoplites. Hoplites weren't just soldiers. They were symbols of Greek unity, discipline, and defiance. Their tactics laid the groundwork for some of the most iconic military formations in history, from the Macedonian Phalanx to the Roman testudo. In this video, we'll explore how a force of citizen soldiers forever changed the art of war and how their legacy still shapes battlefield tactics today. To understand the Hoplites, we have to go back, all the way back to the 8th century BCE. Greece wasn't one nation back then. It was a collection of city-states: Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes, each with its own government, army, and ambitions. These cities were constantly competing for power, territory, and prestige. With conflicts rising, these city-states needed more than noble heroes or chariots. They needed order. They needed a system. And so the Hoplites were born. Not nobles, not mercenaries, but trained citizens. Men who worked their fields by day and formed iron walls by night. That's where the name Hoplite comes from. Hoplon, the giant round shield they carried into battle. Hoplites weren't full-time soldiers. They were bakers, farmers, artisans, ordinary men who bought their own armor, trained regularly, and fought only when called. Since they had to pay for their gear, most Hoplites came from the middle and upper classes. But among them, one group stood above the rest: the Spartans. In Sparta, boys began military training at the age of 7. They were taken from their families and placed in state-run training camps called agogi. There, they learned how to fight, how to steal food without getting caught, and, perhaps most importantly, how to endure pain. They slept on beds of reeds, wore the same clothes year-round, and were beaten regularly, not out of cruelty, but to teach discipline and resilience. By 20, they officially became soldiers, and until they turned 60, war was their only duty. Spartans didn't dine with families. They ate in military mess halls called syssidia. They couldn't own gold or wear luxury clothes, and they weren't even allowed to marry until 30. Everything was built around one goal: creating the perfect warrior. So, what did a hoplite carry into battle? First, the famous hoplon shield. It was round, made of wood and bronze, and large enough to cover from chin to knee. Each shield weighed about 7 to 9 kilograms. Then came the helmet, made of bronze, often with a horsehair crest. It covered nearly the entire head, leaving only small slits for the eyes and mouth. For protection, they wore a bronze or linen cuirass for the chest, greaves for the legs, and a short sword for close combat. But the main weapon was the spear, the dory, about 2.5 meters long, perfect for thrusting over shield walls. Together, these elements made the hoplite a walking tank, slow but incredibly hard to break.
But even the Phalanx had weaknesses. Its biggest flaw? The sides and rear. Because all shields and spears face forward, phalanxes were vulnerable to flank attacks. That's why Greek generals often chose to fight in narrow terrain like mountain passes or dug trenches to protect the sides. Fast-moving enemies like light infantry or cavalry could outmaneuver them, and if they broke the line, the Hoplites were doomed.
Home of the greatest battles in ancient history featured hoplites. At Marathon in 490 BCE, outnumbered Athenian hoplites smashed the Persian army by charging at full speed, minimizing the impact of arrows. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans and their allies held off thousands of Persians in a narrow pass for 3 days. Though they were eventually overwhelmed, their stand became legend and bought Greece precious time. And at Plataea, hoplite armies finally broke the back of the Persian invasion once and for all. The legacy of the hoplites didn't end with them. Their phalanx was adopted and improved by Philip II of Macedon, who gave his soldiers longer spears, the sarissa, and tighter formations. Later, the Roman legions took the idea even further, developing the testudo, a formation of locked shields on all sides and above. Even modern riot police, with their body shields and wall tactics, owe something to the hoplite way. The hoplites weren't the only warriors of their age. The Persian Empire relied on cavalry, archers, and mobility. Hoplites, on the other hand, represented discipline, unity, and the power of teamwork. One-on-one, they weren't unbeatable, but together, in a phalanx, they were a force of nature. Their strategy was simple: hold the line, protect your brothers, and never break formation. The hoplites may be gone, but their influence lives on in strategy, in culture, in every story of courage and unity. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell, and tell us in the comments, which ancient army should we explore next?